reporting. Yeah, nice to see you.
Hello, welcome. Thank you everyone for coming. I'm Mayor Sarah Carlson. We have a lot of information to present to you today, and we're going to get right to it. I'm going to introduce to you Chief Rick Wyffels, and he's going to give you that information, and then he will stand for questions afterwards.
Good afternoon, everyone. Before I get into a series of bullet points that I had prearranged for this event, I'd just like to tell everybody that the public is not any kind of danger of any kind. At least we believe that. With that said, I'm going to get right into the details. After 29 harrowing days, Jasmine Block is safe and has been reunited with her family. She was kidnapped, held against her will, and repeatedly assaulted during her captivity. Until yesterday afternoon, when she escaped and bravely reached out for some help. Block was approached outside of her home on August 8th by a family acquaintance, Thomas Barker. Barker indicated that he needed help with a family situation. Because she knew him, Block offered to help and enter his vehicle. He drove her back to her home in Carlos, but once inside, Jasmine Block's nightmare just began. Barker tied her up with zip ties, and then he, his roommate, and a friend over the next several weeks repeatedly assaulted Ms. Block and threatened her with weapons. Over the past week, the men took Jasmine from Barker's home to several locations, including a cornfield and a foreclosed property in Grant County. It was from there that she escaped when the three men left her alone to get food. This was the first time she'd been left alone in 29 days. When Jasmine escaped, she bravely ran from door to door of nearby properties trying to find someone to help. She eventually swam across a portion of Thompson Lake in Grant County to a residential area where she located a man and asked him to call 911. 3 men are being held in the Douglas County Jail on probable cause of kidnapping, false imprisonment, and assault. The 3 men are on the board up there. Thomas Barker, age 32, from Carlos, Minnesota. Stephen Powers, age 20, from Mankato. And Joshua Holby, 31, also of Carlos. Specific charges will be determined over the course of the next few days by the Douglas County Attorney's Office. This remains an ongoing investigation, and we're still learning many details about what happened. We're asking farmers in Grant County, Pope County, and Douglas County to check their cornfields for damages associated with a vehicle driving through them. We want to identify the specific fields through which they drove with Ms. Block. We're also asking anglers at Thompson Lake to report any clothing located or floating in or on the shoreline. Jasmine lost her shoes and her pants while she swam in that lake. And lastly, we ask that you respect the family's privacy during this extreme and difficult time. The agencies involved in this is lengthy, but it's important to note that we take partnerships incredibly important and a key foundation to solving crimes of this nature. The agencies involved in this investigation, besides the Alexandria Police Department, are Douglas County Sheriff's Office, the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, the FBI, also the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the West Central Minnesota Drug Task and the West Central Minnesota Drug and Violent Crime Task Force, the Minnesota Department of Corrections, the Minnesota State Patrol, Pope County Sheriff's Office, Grant County Sheriff's Office, Glenwood Police Department, Alexandria Fire Department, LifeLink, North Ambulance, Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, the Otter Tail County SWAT Team, and North Star Search and Rescue. With that said, I open it up for questions. Yes, sir.
Do you have any details on the nature of the assault that happened on that farm when she was being held? Was it just physical, or can you get more elaborate than that?
It was both physical assault and sexual assault.
How did you find your three suspects yesterday if she had kind of gotten away from her place of captivity?
So the suspects are probably trying, I'm assuming some of these, by the way, everything I just told you is something that we believe. This is an active investigation and still going on. Everything is subject to be different when the final story is told. With that point stated, the suspects were in search of a place to hide their identity, we believe. And so they're in rural Grant County, staying in cornfields and wooded areas. And they had Ms. Block with her the entire time. And I'm not sure if I answered your question, but if not, go ahead again.
The aftermath, though, she calls 911, you get word, you get your law enforcement to her, but now it's where do we find the three suspects? How did you track them down yesterday?
Very good. It's also an interesting part of the story. So Ms. Block escapes. She runs to the farmer's location. He takes her into the security of his vehicle. Gets the story told to him by the victim and decides that the best place for him, because now he's intimidated or scared for his own safety, that he's going to take this young victim to a local community of Elbow Lake. Well, he's either on his way or he's there. I don't have that determined at this moment. She actually identifies one of the vehicles that had been involved with her, which was being driven by, I believe, Mr. Stephen Powers. Is that correct? And Mr. Powers was arrested. Matter of fact, he's on the phone with the dispatchers talking about, the 911 dispatchers talking about what's happening. When this woman, or this victim, identifies the vehicle, they summons police and get him stopped and arrested. That leaves two other people, the two other suspects at large, and we believe that they're together, which in the end turned out to be that they were together. We knew what they were driving. We put out a search notice to all local law enforcement, actually statewide. A trooper down by Glenwood spotted their vehicle, in which they were stopped shortly thereafter and arrested at a residence in Glenwood.
Chief, can you talk about the heroism of the young woman escaping?
Unbelievable young woman. We are all proud of her on behalf of the police department, all the emergency response people. It's an amazing story when you have something like this happen. You become a part of a very close family. She's an amazing woman with a lot of strength, young lady with a lot of strength. We think a lot of her family. Her mom was strong through this whole time and consistent and never gave up. Amazing people. And the victim is now safe with her mother. And we're all of us in this community are proud of her. And this became a community event. You know, this is about Jasmine. This is about her family. And this is about our community. And it's with the work that happened, working together as a community and as a family, building partnerships and relationships with all of these people, that made the information fly around in a trusting fashion. So when this farmer saw this young lady, he was able to name her before she was able to even say any words, because he knew exactly what this story was all about. And so it's just a perfect example of what it's like to be transparent, to be out there, to work with you folks as well, to help share that information, to make sure that the right thing can happen, and that was to bring Jasmine home safely.
Chief, if you can touch on why did they focus on her specifically?
The first suspect, Thomas Barker, was a previous acquaintance with their neighborhood and of her. So she knew him. And not like regularly knew him, but knew of him, and it was an familiar is the word I'm looking for, of his vehicle. When he approached their house in a friendly way with his vehicle, she recognized his vehicle, as in the audio of how it sounded. Keep in mind, it's the middle of the night. She leaves her house, goes sees what Mr. Barker wanted, and I'll use the word, he tricked her. He tricked her into saying that he would like her to come and help with a family situation. And Jasmine was already familiar with the other family members who did not live with him in that neighborhood. She's thinking it's trusting and honest. She goes, I'll just go with you right now. So she gets in the car, except for he takes her to Carlos and ties her up.
Chief, the suspects, do they know each other? Any previous arrests? How are these three tied together?
So the suspects, Thomas Barker and Joshua Holby, lived together out in Carlos. Suspect Stephen Powers from Mankato is a previous known friend to Mr. Barker. He coincidentally came up for a visit a week or so into this and became a part of it.
I'm sorry, Chief, which two lived together?
Mr. Thomas Barker and Mr. Joshua Holby. I'd like to go over here. Yes?
Did they say why they targeted her?
No one has stated why they targeted her specifically. Yes, Beth.
Do you have any reason to believe that they're involved in any other missing person cases or abductions in the area?
We sure hope not. As a matter of fact, I'm not even familiar with another missing or abducted case in the area. We don't believe that there are other victims that are part of their story right now. And we also, obviously, they're in custody. We don't believe that the public as a whole is at any risk.
Have they given any reason for what they did?
I got to tell you, I come from a simple life, and to understand human mind to that capacity is something I couldn't even get close to.
Chief, were they feeding her?
They did feed her. She did not starve her. They did feed her food, various things, from Taco Bell to fast food, different things from time to time. I don't know about how regular or anything of those natures. They did keep her in a secure part of the house where she couldn't leave, in the back part of the house, oftentimes in a closet.
And always tied up? Or?
Not always tied up. Nope. Mostly in the beginning, we believe, although many of those details we're still working on. Somebody over here has had their hand up, and I keep ignoring you, not on purpose.
Do they have any history, any kind of a criminal history at all? These three men.
Joel, my naivety's kicking in. Two of them I know for sure do, and I was working on that right before this. I got sidetracked, and I didn't get to the third one. Two of these people have some criminal history, not things like this.
Just again to catch up, the Carlos house where she was, restrained and held is Barker's home.
I'm not sure if Barker owns it or whether his roommate owns it, but they live there together.
That's their main residence.
That's
their
correct.
home.
The best that I know, that's correct.
And is it a rural home when neighbors have not seen this arrival?
I guess I'm going to ask Detective Gunther that information.
It's a home in Carlos. It's a mobile home. There are neighbors. We've, like the chief said, it's an ongoing investigation, so obviously there's canvassing and other things to do, asking and talking to neighbors, but it's close enough like in the city.
Chief, understanding the family's privacy, can you talk a little bit about the reunion with Jasmine and her family?
Well, thank you for bringing that up, because that's the positive part of this story, right? There's nothing more reassuring to my career path of 34 years when you have an opportunity to watch a young daughter and their mother reunite and celebrate something that's tragic as this. And it's a beautiful time. You'll find your own emotions come at play. It's the best part of the story. It's a happy ending. The work isn't done. This family is going to need a lot of privacy and a lot of public and community support to continue on.
Can you describe that physical exchange when they met?
Well, it's beautiful. It's love at its capacity, right?
Chief, can you believe the details of this case kind of came together before the last 24 hours?
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable in the world that I live. In Alexandria, we have a great community. We have crime here. We have situations and events here. We have serious crimes here from time to time. But something of this nature is really the reason you are all here, because it's just unbelievable to all you as well. And I would imagine the general public would feel the same way. Why does a human being do this? There's no explanation.
Chief, I heard there was some sort of a drug aspect or a drug investigation into this. Can you speak to how that impacted with her being taken, or was there any sort of drug motivation behind that?
Well, I'm going to kind of generically offer that up, not to be cryptic, but I'll be a little bit. Some of the drug stories are still under investigation on there, but I think the piece that you're asking about was there drugs involved to get her into the car and that first initial point? Still under investigation, but that wouldn't be the primary motivation that we're aware of. There may have been drugs involved from time to time through this particular event. Obviously, it went on for 4 weeks. However, I don't know that specifically to the question that the drugs and the initial take was part of the story. If no one else has any questions, I thank you all for being here. Our efforts at the Alexandria Police Department is twofold today. To be transparent with you and the community, and to be thorough as we can be with the information that we have without disrupting the investigation and the proper format going forward. And so we will bring our partners, the prosecution involved in this kind of thing, and let due process do its piece. Your law enforcement community isn't all gone home and we're not all done. As a matter of fact, we're just continuing to build the puzzle. And we're going to put all the pieces together that we possibly can. Because we're representing Jasmine and our work is not done even though she's united with her mother. We want to make sure that the story is factual, accurate, consistent, and due process can do what it's supposed to do in our country.
Are these two in your Douglas County Jail, or are they still spread out?
They're all, to my knowledge, at least earlier, a few hours ago, for sure we're all in Douglas County Jail. Thank you very much and have a nice day.
Yeah, thank you all for coming.
Okay, and that will conclude the press conference. Chief Wyffels, as you heard, there's plenty of other things to continue on with the investigation, and of course we'll get that information to you as it becomes available. And we'll go back to the studio. Thanks for joining us.